If you meet a true friend in Lesotho, you say dumelang, which means I am entering this conversation in peace. Are you in agreement with me? And then the person that you spoke to and asked the question will ask you, Ukai, where are you? And then you will answer, Kiteng, I am. And he will look you in the eye, and then you will ask him back, when, Ukai, where are you? And then he will answer, Kiteng, I am. And then the conversation starts, because you confirm that your spirits are together, not the bodies. And that for me is what I would like to start off this morning with, the voices of the mountains of Clarence. Because in Clarence, we are in the museum. Every second of our lives, we live in the museum. The Golden Gate National Park and Clarence is probably one of the most profound dreams of a geologist. In the Golden Gate National Park, in the year 2000, I was appointed as the Lesotho Transfrontier Facilitator within the government of Lesotho. And for 10 years, I was working as a conservationist, as a geologist, and as a social scientist towards the creation of the Maluti-Drakensberg Transfrontier Park. And I suggested a museum in Golden Gate called Godumu. Now the word Godumu comes from the fact that in Lesotho there's a mythical creature that left tracks in the rocks. And that mythical creature swallowed all the people of Lesotho, and a hero killed him and let the people free again. And his tracks are still in the hills. And Godumu is when the lightning strikes up the valley. You do not see what it is striking. And then Godumu runs past you with the echoes going into the valley. So, translated loosely, Godumu means a place of greatness. In Afrikaans, waar die kraanse antwoord gee. In Golden Gate, we have some of the most magnificent history and heritage that I have ever lived to see. This valley was carved by glaciers. Between 40,000 and 18,000 years ago, the climate, the temperatures in this valley was 9 degrees colder than today. So periglacial ice sheets were sitting on the southern facing slopes, because the sun shines from the north, and the southern facing slopes are much colder than the northern facing slopes in the park. And the solifluction lobes came down the hills, filling the valley with rubble. We already had people living here. So we discovered artifacts, and Prof. Scott of Bloemfontein discovered some pollen. So we could actually rewrite the history of Golden Gate in great detail. Now, to summarize the story of Golden Gate's geology for you, we need to unfortunately refer to names. In the lower part of the hills, we have the Beaufort Formation. And then halfway up, we have the Takastad subgroup, which is then the Katberg and the Burgersdorp, and then above that, the Molteno and the Stormberg group, and the town of Clarence sits there. in the picture. So we actually sit on a whole sequence of information written on the rocky pages of geology. Each rock layer is a page of a history book. Now, where we are in Gondwana in my imagination. Gondwana is when Africa, South America, Antarctica, and India were all together. And for those of you who don't know, India sits very close to where Durban is. That's why there's so many Indians in Durban. So, to then look at what happened is we had continental collision between Antarctica in the south and where East London is today, building a mountain range 12 kilometers high. And the water from those mountains ran into what was known as the Karoo Basin, like the Okavango swamps in Botswana today. So, in present day time, India is crashing into Eurasia, building the Himalaya range, 11,000 meters high. If we compare the yellow lines in Tibet and we cut Africa out of that collision zone there, we can then compare history with today, where we have the Coxcomb Mountain as the roots of the mountains, with this part then called the Karoo Basin of South Africa. So, the Karoo Basin, I had the privilege of spending 11 years of my life with Baba Tsabalala and John Nyonyani as two friends, walking for 11 years, measuring the mountains in the Karoo in 10 centimeter intervals, collecting over 8,000 carcasses of dead animals and millions of plants and insect wings. So if you join me tomorrow in our dinosaur walk, the collection in the museum in Clarence contains more than 5,000 samples of life. And I'm only allowed to keep this in Clarence in my museum, our museum. It's a family museum that was started in 1993. My son completed his PhD at WITS 2 years ago. Between the two of us, 40 years of collection. And being an honorary researcher at WITS, all the collection is under the auspices and permit of the WITS University. If you look at how the Karoo actually formed, the geology of the Karoo, you have to imagine a mountain at Port Elizabeth, 12,000 meters high, and a basin to the north, with all the rocks of the Karoo collecting over time. Now, Gondwana broke apart because of continental drift. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the Orange River started flowing from Lesotho to the north, meeting the Vaal and going off to the sea. And on this side, we had the Fish River, the Tugela, and all the other rivers cutting away on my picture. So when we fly over Clarence, we're actually looking at dongas. The entire landscape where we live in Clarence are the remains of big dongas cut by water. There's the boundary of Lesotho. That is the Natal parks there with Bergwell down there, Clarence. But you'll see the water washing down the hills, washing things away. So over 130 million years of time, this is what is left of my picture. And I had the privilege as a young geologist to walk from Durban to Pietermaritzburg, up Sani Pass to the top, measuring that section in 10 centimeter intervals. Now, to bring you into my imagination, I need to go to the Okavango swamps because we have a similar thing happening there. We have a very big fault line at Maun. We have quite a big fault zone, and this is a graben, which means the earth is sagging. The Okavango River comes in and have this delta forming, and it actually, in the wetter times, overwashed and went into the Magadichedi pans. But it's very important that we realize that if you're in a hut in Maun, 20 meters in front of the hut, there's water, and 20 meters behind the hut, there's never water. So the fault zones are very, very small. And that is why, using that information, I am now 98% successful with the sighting of boreholes in the Karoo. If I then use this information and fly down and look at the Okavango Delta, I can then see meandering channels in the delta with calcareous concretions and dryness where animals can live. And here you need a little boat. And then if I come a bit closer, then you will see that we can identify the guest houses, the reed beds, tree lines, and very importantly, the peat bogs. Peat bogs generate methane gas. So if an animal go and drink water at the peat bog, not knowing how dangerous it is, they fall asleep and they become fossils. So, I had the privilege, when Eskom was building a power station near Harrismith, to see a geological picture cut from here to there when they excavated for the wall of the dam. So here, I was working, looking at history, by looking at what I could find in terms of the remains of my Okavango swamp. So you'll see I got wetlands, I've got channels over there, and I've got forests over there. So what did we discover? First of all, we had a tree sticking out the hillside here. So there you can see the people working, and I found this tree. So with the excavators working, I said to the chap in the excavator, "Yush, there's a bottle of brandy for you if you don't break this fossil." So he excavated the tree for me. A few minutes later, he excavated the skull of a crocodile, and there you can see the tooth of the crocodile. That is then, in my mind, the picture. So, coming towards Clarence, we are in the Molteno Formation, and this is, in my mind, what the environment looked like. So, the Gariep Dam today, because the Gariep Dam was never built as a dam, it's a silt trap. The Gariep Dam today is 70% silted up, so it's only got 30% water in it now these days. But this is what it looks like during the flood times. The dam is a beautiful example of the Karoo millions of years ago. So, in Golden Gate, we discovered that the creatures lived in burrows. This is one of the best examples of vertebrate burrows in the world, with a mommy and a daddy and a baby preserved together in the burrows in Golden Gate. These are the living examples of lizards, small giganteus, of which I was privileged to move 1,050 from Kokwa into the park. Then here's my son David, where we discovered these burrows, and there's his speciality is the tiny animals. So this then, the Molteno times, and there you can see the tracks of the dinosaurs that walked in the mud, and there's the track of the dinosaur that we use to show the children and teach them. This then, the Elliott Formation, this where the kiddies are finding these fossils with us, and there you can see the egg that was discovered by Prof. James Kitching. This is our museum that the people joining us tomorrow will visit. And you can see we all do the story of Golden Gate. Brandwag Rock, in my mind, is a desert deposit, and it looked like this 200 million years ago. It was a pool in the middle of the desert, and it's full of evidence of that pool. The sandstones of Clarence, known for its art, known for little bugs that live on them. These are bagworms that actually use the sand to make houses. And as we go up into Lesotho, we reach the lavas that when Gondwana broke apart, the lavas erupted, and 1,500 meters of clean lava erupted over South Africa, and now the Tugela has washed away our picture. That is then what I think Golden Gate looked like around about 155 million years ago. And today the water comes down these hills in Golden Gate when it rains, and we look beyond the boundaries. I thank you.